guys, welcome back to the channel, and look what we got back up on the lift again today. Today is going to be a pain in the butt, honestly. The clutch in this thing is acting up, so I'm going to have to put a clutch in it. This is a 6-speed manual, so I'm going to have to drop the transfer case, transmission, and all that stuff. Here's the clutch that he bought. Get over here to it. It's actually an upgraded clutch. See if I can get a thing. They got this stupid thing in the box. It's really weird. Let's get it open. There's the new clutch, and there's the flywheel that's under it. Come with a whole new flywheel and all, and throw out bearings and all that stuff. So we're going to get that changed over today. And I've looked on YouTube just to see if anybody has, put a bunch of videos on it. And honestly, the only thing I seen on YouTube that I could find was showing how to install the clutch once the transmission was done dropped. So I'm going to try to do like an entire install, or it's how you remove the transmission, how you put the clutch in, and how you put the transmission back. This may be a pretty long video. I'm not sure, because I've never took transmission out of one of these 15 JKs before. I've done Cherokees and TJs and YJs and all that, but never one this new on a Wrangler. So we're going to jump right in it. The first thing I'm doing, I've already removed the skid plate here, which is right here on the ground. So it's just these 4 bolts, and they are pretty sure there's a 19 millimeter. Let me make sure, 18 millimeter. For some reason, some of the stuff on this is metric and some of it's USA, so you'll have to, just bear with me while I find sockets and stuff that fit it. We got that removed, and now the next thing I'm doing is removing these bolts here. Focus. For the drive shaft. I'm going to remove the front drive shaft and the rear, and they're an 8 millimeter, but they're 12 point. Let me see if y'all can see that. Make sure y'all see what I'm talking about here. See, they're 12 point head bolts. So make sure you remove those without stripping them off. And yours may not be 12 points because we've upgraded this drive shaft already, so I'm not exactly sure what bolts y'all will have. It's still an 8, I'm sure, but I don't think they're 12 points. And I'm going to remove this whole drive shaft out of the way, and then I'm going to remove the rear one, and then we'll go from there. It's a really slow go. They didn't notch it out enough to where you can get a ratchet and a socket in there. And again, y'all may be able to on your stock ones, but this drive shaft and yoke has been changed over. An upgraded version. But I ain't gonna bore y'all with this. In other words, you get the gist. Remove these 4 bolts and remove this drive shaft, and then also remove your rear drive shaft, and then we'll move on to the next step. One thing I did forget to mention on removing this factory drive shaft is back here. Make sure you don't hit your threaded holes for your bolts. There's 2 big round holes, one on each side, and that's meant for a punch. You go in right there to tap out this drive shaft. You can see it's moving. So I'm going to have to do this and catch it. As you can see, I got them both out now. See, the back one's out and the front one's out. I think the next thing I'm going to do is actually remove this exhaust. You can see it just basically stops back here. Right here's the back tire. Why y'all zoomed in so far? But basically the only thing I got to remove is this one hanger. And see, we've already got the spacers in it for his lift kit in the exhaust. So I can undo these 4 bolts and that one hanger, and this whole center section will come off. And then you can unbolt this cross member. Here's a bolt and here's a bolt, and there's one and there's one. And see, that's your transmission mount. So you'll be able to remove this whole plate. Make sure you remember to undo these 2 bolts that hold your gas tank skid plate on. So I'm going to remove the exhaust. Then I'll get a transmission jack up and put under the transmission. Pick up on it, remove the transmission mount, and then I'll remove this cross member. I'll let it sag down just a little bit, and then I'll be able to get to all the bell housing bolts. Before I do the bell housing bolts, of course, you got to undo your starter, which is right up in there on this one. But all right, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. First thing I'm going to do now is remove this exhaust. So just remember, if you don't have these spacers, you're still going to remove these bolts here, and this flange is threaded, so you just got to unscrew there and there, there and there. And then the easiest way I found to get these off is I'm going to undo this one, because I can prise against the frame, spray WD-40 up in there, or any kind of liquid wrench or anything like that to make it slick. Take your long pry bar and hook right here on the side of this rubber mount, and it'll usually pop right off. That's the easiest and quickest way I found to get them things off without tearing them. And these bolts here on this flange are 1/2 inch. But again, also too, we have these spacers, so your factory bolts may be a different size. I'm going to turn my gun down so I don't have to worry about it stripping them out. And again, I did spray these with WD-40 after I talked with y'all a while ago. That way they come out nice and easy. You can tell where the WD-40 got up in there. That way you don't have to worry about stripping anything out or any of that nonsense, because these things are a pain in the butt. If anybody's ever stripped one of these out, like a donut gasket bolt or something like that, or a manifold bolt, and try to drill them out, they're a pain in the butt. Alright, I'm not really going to be able to show y'all this one because it's kind of backwards the way it's. I'm not going to be able to really show y'all me taking it out, but let me turn you up here. Y'all can both see them right there, and the heads of the bolts are over here. This one I have to take out with a wrench. This one I have to have swivels and a few extensions to get it jacked up over the top of it right here, to where I can do it from the back side of this here Crossmember. But in order to get those two off, and then I'll show you how to prise that exhaust hanger off. Alright, now I got that unbolted. Here's what I was talking about for the people that have problems with this. I've already sprayed them with WD-40, as you can see everything's wet. If you'll just get you one of these, I might have to go slow on kind of this unbolted. I want to be able to catch it. Just work it back and forth like that. And eventually she'll pop off, and it's almost off right there. Alright, it's barely hanging, so I'm going to turn y'all off for a minute, move this camera, because I don't want to, if I do accidentally drop it, I don't want to knock the camera over. Better? Get y'all out of the way. There's the exhaust. So that's out of the way. And now, here's this light here where y'all can see what I'm talking about. I gotta get that spacer so it don't hit me in the head in a minute. But see, now the only thing that's under this transmission is that crossmember right there. So once I remove those two bolts, the bolts up in where they at, right up in there, that hold the transmission mount, and there's the other one. And then I'll leave it mounted on the transmission. Just unmove this, and I'll put a transmission jack right here to hold this up, and then we'll undo the slave cylinder, and the starter will be the next thing. I'll probably undo them before I undo this crossmember. Yeah, that way I ain't got to fight around the jack. Alright, the next thing to take off, and here's your slave cylinder. One bolt on the top, one on the bottom, and well, I don't know if y'all can see that or not. And it's also a 1/2 inch. Maybe y'all can see that. Well, it's upside down. Anyway, it's a 1/2 inch. So you're going to remove them two. Get them off out of the way. Just be careful with this slave cylinder here. It's actually plastic. Or it feels like plastic. Yeah, it's plastic. It's kind of dumb to make something, it's got hydraulics in it like that out of plastic, but whatever. finish spinning that off. Got it loose. You can see it's moving here. Get that off out of the way, and we'll move on to the next thing. You see we got it out. So I'll probably take a wire tie and hold that over to the exhaust just so it's out of the way, or a bungee cord, whatever you want to do. Just be careful and not break this housing here, because I'd say that's probably a pretty expensive little part. So bow that over there and wire tie that up out of the way. And then the next thing we're going to do is I think we'll start on the starter. Alright, right there is the starter. We're going to want to undo that bolt, and the very next bolt up. One that's right behind that bracket right there. Well, my hand's in the way. That one right there. And they're a 15 millimeter, which is what I have here. It fits on it perfectly. So you want to do those two and move the starter out of the way. Something too that'll help you is, just like on all the other videos, if you've got you a wobble, so you can bend it, whatever, it's a heck of a lot better than a swivel. And then you got you an impact gun, that makes life a lot easier. Alright, I got the starter unbolted. The wires are wire tied up real nice and neat up there, so I'm just going to leave them there. And two, they're on that clip, so once I undo that bolt, I should be able to move that a little further out of the way. Here are your bell housing bolts. But the next thing I'm going to do is undo this transmission mount. The bolt here, here, and here. Yeah, those three. That one, and that one. And then I'm going to get me a transmission jack. Actually, I'm going to get two of them. I'm going to put one supporting this and one supporting the transfer case. I'm going to go up, and then I'm going to take these four bolts out, two on each side, focus, two on each side, and go from there. Bell housing bolts are 15 millimeters, same as the starter bolts. And the Crossmember bolts, they are an 18. Well, y'all can't really see that. Anyway, that's an 18. And our Crossmember bolts are going to be, I bet you they're going to be a 15 as well. Let's find my gun here, just get my impact here and see if these are a 15. That way y'all at least know. Well, like a dummy, I grabbed a non-deep well socket. Let's get a deep well here. There's a 15. Let's see, is this it? No, they're going to be like a 16 or a 17. Transmission mount nuts are actually a 16, and you got to have a deep well socket. I wasn't paying attention. Deep well socket. There's one. You got another one in this hole, and your other one is in right there. So those oblong shaped holes there, there, and there is your transmission mounts that bolt it to this Crossmember. There's no reason, just to change the clutch, there's no reason to unbolt it from the transmission. So I'm going to leave that mounted and unbolt them off this so I can drop this plate and Crossmember out of the way. Alright, the next thing to do, I don't know if the stupid light keeps blinding me. Alright, this cable right here goes up to your four-wheel drive stick, for those of you with a four-wheel drive manual. And you see how this thing right here, I've done got it popped off, but it goes on there like that. The easiest way to take that off, I've found, is with one of these forks, like for the body clips on your newer cars and trucks. And if you'll just turn this thing out of your way, and if you'll just put this right up behind it, like that, and you can pop it right off. Pops off easy. All this little rubber grommet in there holds it on anyway. Pops off right easy, and you don't have to worry about breaking anything. And your next thing is these clips right here. Sorry y'all can't see, this light not really working with me here, my arm's in the way. Anyway, you gotta get this clip off, and all it does is you're supposed to pinch it. My hands are too big to get in there, so I'm going to use a pair of halfway needle nose here. They're needle nose, but a little bit thicker. And this stupid thing won't stay up there. Trying to hold the camera and film and shine a light all at the same time. Focus. Get some light here where we can see what we're doing. There we go. Alright, you can see that basically you just want to pinch those like that, and then the thing pushes downward. In other words, when you pinch them together, as you can see, the little tit right there holds that in. You're going to pinch them together and pull it down. I can't do it with one hand, so give me 1 second. Alright, as you can see, there it is. I just stuck it through that goofy loop that Jeep put right there on the exhaust to hold it over out of the way. And see, the whole clip is still on this right here. Let me get the light down. See the clip? There. So that stays on there. Then you can see the wires up there. Turn that out of the way. Got your plug-in, you know, your transfer case right there, your wiring harness. I can't get my hand up in there until I'll remove this cross member, so the transmission will lean down enough where I can get to it. And also too, make sure you pay attention, that wiring harness has got those clips all the way down it, zip tied to it. So make sure you remove those with that same little fork tool I showed you. Not the easiest way to do it, and see there's another one back there. Get all those out of the way before you try to move this, or you'll end up either breaking a wire or tearing the wiring harness or breaking a plug or something. So make sure you get that done first. Alright, I just made another video on how to get this off, just for people who want to know and don't have to watch the whole thing. Basically, I come inside to get this thing off out of the way, and it is a pain in the rear. You've got this little piece of plastic, you know, that slides on and covers all that crap up. Then basically the easiest way is get a pair of channel locks, and you're basically going to ruin this thing. Is grip it here. If I can make the stupid light stand up. As you grip it right here at the bottom, that way you, at least if you don't break it, you can still reuse it. And you're going to twist as you're pulling up, and as you're doing that, it's going to take some force, which I've already got this one off. It's going to come up, but see how it kind of ruined. As you can see, it kind of ruined those little teeth, which don't really matter because they're not good for nothing. Only thing it does is hold this little piece of, you know, fancy looking cover over it. But as you can see right there's the little notches that are holding this thing on. Why in the world they designed it like that, I don't know. Leave it up to Jeep to mess with something that works. They should have just made it threaded like a normal one and been done with it. So you're either going to have to replace this, which there's no telling how high that is, or glue it back on, whichever one you want to do. We're going to order a brand new one. We're not going to put something back on that's broke, but you know, if it was my Jeep, more than likely I'd glue it back together, but it's not mine, so no big deal. Alright, so we got that off. The next thing to do is get back under it and get that cross member out from under it. Alright, as y'all can see, I got the transmission supported in the transfer case, and I've got the nut off of this one, got the bolt out of that one, and maybe we can get up in here and see, and I got the bolt out of both of those, and I've undone the skid plate for the transfer case. So now the only thing that's holding it up there is this one bolt and just the tension of it being stuck in between those pieces of metal. So now we're going to pull this bolt out, drop this down, and then I'm going to easily lower this jack and this jack and let the transmission just barely tilt. Remember, you don't want it to fall all the way back, because then that's putting all the weight of this transfer case, transmission, everything on your motor mounts, and probably more than likely the upper plenum and intake and stuff is going to hit the firewall. So never let it just fall all the way back. I've got that cross member gone. See, there's the transmission mount, and I've tilted it down basically that far. Let me see, get my hands free here. That rubber bushing right there was up against the floor pans. You can tell where it was clean. I'm assuming they did that for sound. So that's how far I leaned it backwards. And now it's time to get these clips off. I told you, some of y'all may be able to get it before this step. I just couldn't get my hand up in there. But see, this little tool I was talking about pulls them out perfectly. Got one there, got another one there, and another one, well, it's a dark, another one right in there. Pop all those off, and then you're going to have to unbolt that little, looks like probably a 10mm, I'm guessing, which will undo your fuel lines right here. So make sure you remember to unbolt those, and then that one, that whole bracket right there is bolted to your bell housing bolt. So once you undo it, that bracket will come off out of the way. And then, don't forget Let me grab the light again. Don't forget to unplug your plugs on your transfer case and your breather tube. Remember, we already done the shift linkage already. So undo that and that plug right there. And there's another one of those little clips right there, as you can see. Make sure you get all that off, because you don't want to rip wires or break sensors or something, just more stuff to buy. So I'm going to get those steps done I just showed you. And again, just to make sure y'all, I said that correctly, I wouldn't lower it no more than that, just to keep pressure off of your motor mounts, and to make sure you're not hitting your firewall. See how close those sensors are? That's pushing about how far you want to drop that thing down up there on the back of the motor. And see, we're putting all the pressure on those motor mounts. Alright, you can see here I done got this unbolted, and I've done got all the wires unrun and the breather tube. I just kind of run them over here, stuck them down that, just to get them out of the way. So everything now is unbolted from the transmission and transfer case. If you want to, I mean, you can unhook the transfer case. It would make it a lot easier as far as manhandling this thing right here, you know, backwards or forwards, like if you're on the ground doing it off jacks or jack stands. Me, I try to leave the transfer case on, and just, since I have two of these jacks, I can lower it, slide it back, put my clutch, and then put it back. Of course, if I was replacing this transmission, like if this was bad and I was putting a whole transmission in it, then I would remove this transfer case now, or I would have removed it before I undone the Crossmember, and then did just the transmission, put the new one in, and then done this. But since the only thing I'm doing is the clutch, I'm going to bring them back together, put my clutch in, and put it back. Alright, well, the next thing now is the bell housing bolts. I'm going to get those undone, and I don't know if I'm going to film any more until the transmission's back or what. I'm going to try this first and see, and I'm going to loosen the bolts, and I'll probably see y'all here in just a second. Ready? I've got, sorry about this, my battery died on my light. I've got all the bell housing bolts out except for one, and I took and ratchet strapped the transmission to this jack, and I crossed them so this side runs over there and runs over and goes to that side, so it can't turn over. Then I done the same thing with the transfer case, ratchet strapped it to this, and just to help make it sturdy, I grabbed a little plastic shim that I keep for stuff like this, put it under that bolt, so now it's not only touching right here, it's also touching there, and then I ratchet strapped that, and then took all the extra and tied it up. So that right there should be good and sturdy. So the only thing that's left is that one bolt. I'm going to undo it, and then we're going to lower this thing back, and then I'll show you how to take the clutch out. We got the transmission dropped, and as you can see right here is what was wrong with the clutch. See, there's a piece of the clutch, and there's a few pieces like that one right there and right over there on the ground. But the main stuff, which you can see the dust everywhere, the main stuff is right here. See all that? All that is pieces of the clutch that came apart. So that's why you wanted to go with this upgraded one. Kind of being on hills and us hitting trails and doing some off-roading and stuff, it don't put as much pressure on it. So only thing you do to unbolt this is these bolts here. You unbolt them all the way around it, and you'll hold on to this. What I usually do is take them all out except for the bottom one, because it's easier to get a gun on, or a ratchet, whatever you're using. And I sit there and hold it like that while I loosen it. That way it don't fall and hit the ground, and move it out of the way. And then he actually also bought a flywheel, so I'm going to be replacing the flywheel also. But yeah, I'm going to get that unbolted for the day, and we'll stop the video now. I'll see y'all in the morning when we start putting the new clutch and the new flywheel in it. We'll stop it right there, but I got this pressure plate and clutch dropped, and I want y'all to see this thing. Look at this. Alright, looks like a normal clutch, right? See how you see the pad all the way around it? There's no pad. The pad is right here, melded to the pressure plate. See how it burned it? All the way around. That's crazy. I've never seen one come apart like that. Burnt plumb into it. Alright, well, this is the end of the day. It's like 5:30, 5:45. So we're going to jump back up on this thing first thing in the morning. So we'll see y'all then. Stay tuned. Morning. We're back here getting started back on this clutch. The next thing I've got to do is replace this flywheel and get this thing out of here, out of the way. Some of y'all won't have to replace this. It just depends. I dropped my screwdriver. It just depends if y'all are doing like an upgraded clutch. If you're doing an OEM clutch, then these will be fine as long as there's no, you know, bad spots or anything in it, which this one doesn't seem to be. It's scored a little bit right there, but not bad. But this new clutch requires a completely different pressure plate. I'm sorry, not a pressure plate, a brand new flywheel. I guess it's a difference in thickness or something. There's something different. Looking at them to the eye, they look the same, but it has to have it on it. So the only thing you're going to want to do is unbolt these bolts and then put your new one up there and bolt it back. So I'm going to do that real quick, and we'll flop over and show you how to install the clutch. Our new flywheel is installed. As you can see, center force, made in the USA. So we got that installed. And make sure you put Loctite on those center bolts. This is basically going to be for the people who are installing the center force, because different clutches have different torques. This one actually came with new bolts for the flywheel. I mean for the pressure plate. See, it even says 4 pressure plate. And you're only supposed to torque them between 35 and 38 foot-pounds. So make sure you put some Loctite on these and then go around in sequence, you know, here, and move them around until it's completely on it, and then torque them all down to between 35 and 38. And again, you know, an OEM clutch may have different torque specs or another name, so just make sure you read the instructions on your torque specs before you do it. So all thing we're going to do now is I'm going to get these torqued in, and make sure it comes with your alignment tool, of course, you know, which I'll show that in a minute. And this one also came with a new pilot bearing, so we gotta replace it. See? Alright, let me get this thing unboxed. They've got it bolted to cardboard, so let me get it unbolted. And before you start to tighten down your pressure plate, make sure you put your alignment tool in it. Get it lined up, get your clutch moved around where it goes in there nice and easy. Get that lined up. And once you get that lined up there, it goes in nice and easy, see? So make sure that's in there nice and good. And now you can start your tightening sequence here. Alright, now I've got my torque wrench. I got it set to 37 foot-pounds. And what you're going to want to do is cross them. So I'm going to do this one. I'm going to come down here and do this one. And I'm going to do this one, and here, and here, and here. And check, make sure they're all on 35, or 37 is what I have it set to. There you go. Now it's installed and it's torqued down, and then just remove your alignment tool. And there you go. That's it. Now you just put the transmission back in it. Now that's how you pull the transmission and transfer case and replace the clutch and the flywheel on a JK. As far as I know, any of them with the 6-speed manual should be the same, and even the automatic. I mean, as far as not changing the clutch but pulling the transmission is going to be pretty much the same. You'll have a few, you know, your lines and a few extra things, but as far as the cross members and that kind of stuff, pretty much going to be the same. Yeah, that's pretty much how you do it. There's no, I mean, basically you just follow your steps that you took apart. Go right back down the same way you took them apart, put them right back together the same way. I put Loctite on the pressure plate bolts and the flywheel bolts, and anything else you think that you might want, you know, Loctite on, like slave cylinder, wouldn't hurt to put some on that because it's constantly getting pressure. Little things like that. But and your drive shaft bolts, I always put Loctite on every one of the bolts for the drive shafts. And then other than that, that's pretty much it. Alright, well, I appreciate y'all joining me while we worked on this whole JK again. We got us a upgraded clutch of this thing. And for those of you that do want to know what it is, it's the Center Force 2. It's that, well, it lights in a way. It's that little emblem there. And of course, y'all seen the old orange clutch. Supposed to be, he's got the paper in yonder, but it's supposed to grab 60% better than over OEM for off-roading and stuff. The two, they make several different kinds. They make some for drag racing, some for hill climbs. I got a whole little list that came with it. Alright, well, I appreciate y'all watching and hanging out with me. Make sure you smash that subscribe button and like and comment and share and do all that stuff, and I hope this helps some people. This is the first JK, this new of a Jeep, but especially you know, this new of a JK that I've ever replaced the clutch on, so not too big a deal. I mean, actually it's pretty simple, really. Yeah, alright, well, like always, until next time, y'all have a good one.